Following discussions among representatives of all parties in the House, I understand that there is an agreement to observe a moment of silence in memory of the victims of the shooting in Atlanta, Georgia. J'invite les honorables.
I invite honorable members to rise.
Oral questions. Question orale, the honourable member for Portage-Lisgar.
Mr. Speaker, we are over a year into COVID. Lockdowns were set initially across the world to give governments time to get the tools in place that they needed to protect their people. Those tools are now available, tools like rapid testing, vaccines, and treatments, but our federal government, well, they haven't delivered them as quickly as other countries. So when the US, the UK, and others are planning a final end to the restrictions and freedom once again, here in Canada, there is no hope and no end in sight, only the threat of more lockdowns. So, Mr. Speaker, where is the data-driven, detailed federal plan to end the lockdowns? Is there a plan?
Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Before we respond to this important issue, I must underscore a matter of deep concern in this House. This past weekend, the Deputy Leader opposite's party once again rejected science and reaffirmed its disbelief in the reality of climate change. I know it is discouraging to many Canadians that a major political party in this country will not acknowledge this basic scientific fact and the threat it poses to future generations. But let me assure Canadians that our government knows climate change is real, and we will continue to implement our plan to address it.
Deputy Leader of the Opposition.
What's real is the government has no plan to end the lockdowns for them. That's something they know is real. Mr. Speaker, another very serious matter I hope we can get an answer to. For over 2 years, the two Michaels have been held in prison in China. Now, while these Canadians are having their so-called day in court, and you know what? Canada's ambassador in China is missing in action. 23 other countries are there to show their support, but our ambassador didn't show up. Why is that? Well, maybe it's because he's delivering, maybe hand-delivering that $40 million check from Canada to China for the Asian Infrastructure Bank.
Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, of course, I reject the premise of that unusual question. I want all Canadians to know that the release of Michael Spavor and Michael Kovrig is our #1 priority, and our thoughts go out to both of them and their families at this very difficult time. We, of course, have said for the longest time that arbitrary detention is totally unacceptable, and we're very preoccupied by the lack of transparency in their court proceedings. And we thank other countries for joining us in front of the courthouse for today's trial.
The Honourable Deputy Leader of the Opposition.
Well, actions speak louder than words. The Liberals have used the imprisonment of these Canadians as an implied reason not to deal with Huawei or to deal with genocide and the multitude of China's other abuses. Now, while the two are appearing in this kangaroo court, we've learned the Prime Minister has just sent $40 million to China for the Asian Infrastructure Bank. How can we have any confidence that the Prime Minister is actually acting in the best interest of the two Michaels when he's sending $40 million to the communist regime that took them captive?
Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we have been focused on the release of the two Michaels from the very beginning. We have said very, very clearly that arbitrary detention of innocent Canadian civilians on trumped-up charges is totally unacceptable. Now we are joined by many other countries who also are very concerned about arbitrary detention. And my message to China is that if you're doing business with other countries, it is not acceptable to detain their citizens when you have a difference of opinion with that country. That is not how the international rules of law are applied.
Le député de Louis Saint-Laurent.
Monsieur le Président, généralement,
Mr. Speaker, usually when somebody is facing allegations of inappropriate conduct, there's an investigation. When an investigation is led, is to be very careful, and I'm talking about the case of General Vance. When the Prime Minister's cabinet found out that there was an investigation, what did they do? Increased his salary by $50,000. How can the so-called feminist Prime Minister explain this? The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, let me first make it very clear that our government and I have no tolerance for any type of misconduct in the Canadian Armed Forces. And let me be clear, I do not determine pay increases. That is done independently and is based on the advice and recommendation of the public service. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable député de Louis Saint-Laurent.
The Honourable Member for Louis Saint-Laurent. Let's recall the facts. There were allegations of misconduct, and recently the Prime Minister said he was not aware, and then the story changed. He said, oh yes, it's true, my office was aware, but that changes nothing. The office of the Prime Minister was aware of allegations of sexual misconduct weighing against General Vance, and the Prime Minister, with the support of the Council of Ministers, gave him a $50,000 pay raise. Why? The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, as I stated, let me be clear that I do not make determined pay increases. This is done independently and is based on the advice and recommendation of the public service. I also just want to point out today in the Defense Committee, we heard from the Harper's former Chief of Staff, and let me quote him, Mr. Speaker. The Prime Minister's office is not an investigative body. Senior officials in the Privy Council's office are the ones responsible for interacting with the Department of National Defense and the Canadian Armed Forces with respect to this matter. Political staff, ministers currently aren't investigative entities in our system of government. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
L'honorable député de la Prairie.
The Honourable Member for La Prairie. On Thursday, the Government of Quebec will table its budget. Unfortunately, during a public health crisis, it will not be able to massively reinvest in health because the federal government is refusing to do its part. It makes no sense. After seeing everything that our care staff has gone through, after seeing a third wave on the horizon because of variants, the federal government will not give any answer to our nurses and caregivers except with, we'll see after the pandemic. Does the government at least have the intention of increasing health transfers? The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, every step of the way, we've been there for provinces and territories, whether it's billions of dollars in safe restart agreements, $740 million of which was designated to long-term care. Mr. Speaker, whether it was purchasing protective equipment, whether it was purchasing vaccines, whether it was supporting the payment of essential workers through $3 billion in top-up wages. We've been there for provinces and territories. We'll continue to be there for the province of Quebec.
La Prairie.
c'est une hausse des transferts.
What we need for health is an increase in transfers. We need to help our nurses and help our care workers to improve care offered to those who are ill and to our seniors. That's what needs to be done. Our care staff doesn't need to take any lessons from the Liberals or accept their standards. They don't need a meeting among politicians 100 days after the next election, as has been proposed. These parties are disconnected from reality, and what we really need is an increase of transfers during the pandemic. Why is it nobody here understands that? The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, when Quebec needed the Government of Canada, we were there for Quebec. We sent in the Canadian military to support the care for seniors in long-term care facilities across Quebec. We were there with the Red Cross, Mr. Speaker, making sure that long-term care homes that were experiencing outbreak had trained supportive staff to help the province in a very difficult time for all Quebecers. We'll continue to be there, Mr. Speaker, now and into the future.
L'honorable député de Burnaby Sud.
The Honourable Member for Burnaby South. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Prime Minister found out that his former Chief of the Defence Staff was facing allegations of sexual misconduct. Instead of running an investigation, they increased his pay. That sends a clear message to women in the Canadian Forces that they are not taken seriously and that they are not safe. Will the Prime Minister apologize and prevent the occurrence of such a situation again?
Ministre.
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, as I stated, our government has no tolerance for any type of misconduct in the Canadian Armed Forces. And let me be clear once again, when it comes to pay increase, that is done independently and is based on the advice and recommendation of the public service. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Burnaby South.
Systemic racism hurts racialized people, and in particular, Indigenous people. The RCMP civilian watchdog made two very serious findings. One, the Bushi family was discriminated against by the RCMP, and two, the RCMP destroyed evidence in the case. A year ago, the Prime Minister took a knee at a Black Lives Matter protest, but has yet to take any action. People are fed up with the Prime Minister's symbolic gestures. When will the Prime Minister take concrete action to end systemic racism in the RCMP?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And first of all, let me begin by acknowledging my deepest sympathy to the family, friends, and community of Colton Bushi. And we thank the CRCC for their excellent work in providing answers to the questions that the families had. Mr. Speaker, let me also acknowledge that in the report, the CRCC addressed deficiencies in several areas of the RCMP response, including the manner in which the next of kin notification took place. I have spoken to the Commissioner of the RCMP. She has accepted all of the recommendations, and we'll work very closely with her to ensure a full implementation to address the deficiencies in the police response identified by the complaints review. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Carleton.
When it originally came to light, the Prime Minister had given a $500 million taxpayer-funded grant to a group that had paid his family $500,000. He blamed it all on a bureaucrat over in the employment department, saying his office had nothing to do with it. Well, until last week, when it came to light that Craig Kielburger wrote a message to the Prime Minister's senior advisor. Hello, Ben, thank you for your kindness in helping to shape our latest program with the government. Will the Prime Minister agree to let his top advisor come to the Ethics Committee and explain what role he played in shaping this program that gave money back to a group that had paid off the Trudeau family?
The Honourable Minister.
Well, Mr. Speaker, we believe that committees do very important work in this Parliament, and we've also always worked very closely with all committees. Our ministers have appeared at committees, have answered all the questions. We provided the documents that have been requested, thousands and thousands of pages, Mr. Speaker. But my colleague also knows that committees are masters of their own work. They make their own decision, and we will always respect that.
The Honourable Member for Carleton.
So anxious to see committees do their work that the Prime Minister actually shut down committees, and indeed all of Parliament, for almost 2 months to stop them from answering those questions. He then began another 2-month filibuster to block questions, and today, when we came forward asking for Mr. Chen to come and testify in a motion, Liberal members showed up and began filibustering all over again. Mr. Speaker, if this government has nothing to hide, why don't they let us open up the investigation and find the truth?
Honourable Minister.
Monsieur le Président, mon collègue.
Mr. Speaker, the government maintains that committees are masters of their own destiny, and the member knows it. They can make their own decisions. I'm sure that the Conservatives respected the autonomy and independence of committees when they were in power, as we do now. And this ethics can plays an excellent role in maintaining Canadian democracy.
Richmond Hill.
Le Comité de la Défense étudie de graves allégations.
The Defense Committee is studying serious allegations of sexual misconduct within our Canadian Armed Forces. The committee's testimony is important for the committee and for the public. However, Zita Astravas, former Chief of Staff to The Minister of National Defense refuses to appear. Will the Minister of Public Safety confirm that his current Chief of Staff, Zita Astravas, will appear before the Defense Committee? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, I said it earlier. The government believes in and supports the extremely important work that all committees are doing. Our ministers have appeared, they have answered questions, they've provided documents. We've provided millions of documents, and we do it professionally, and we are pleased to do so. Committees are masters of their own destiny. They take their own decisions, and I hope that they keep this in mind.
Oak Ridges, Richmond Hill. Aurora Oak Ridges, Richmond Hill.
Well, Mr. Speaker, understanding who knew what and when regarding sexual misconduct allegations against the former Chief of the Defence Staff is critical to achieving a Canadian Armed Forces where women can serve equally and without fear. As a public servant, Zita Astravas is in service to Canadians. As the former Chief of Staff to the Defence Minister, her testimony is required for the Defense Committee to do its work. Will the Public Safety Minister confirm when his Chief of Staff, Zita Astravas, will testify at committee?
Honourable Minister.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I said it before. We believe that committee do very, very important work in this parliament, and we always work closely with the committees. We keep working closely with the committees. Our minister are going there all the time. They're appearing, they're answering the questions, very important questions that have to be asked, and we answer those questions. And when documents are asked, we provide them. And I mean, it's in thousands of pages, Mr. Speaker. We do what has to be done. But my colleague knows very well that committees are masters of their own work. She has to respect that, and I hope she will.
The Honourable Member for Selkirk Interlake Eastman.
And the minister says that, Mr. Speaker, as the Liberals filibuster at the Defence Committee to call Zita Astravas. We know the Defence Minister's Chief of Staff briefed the Prime Minister's office regarding serious allegations of sexual misconduct by General Vance back in 2018. The Prime Minister admitted he learned of these allegations before he signed off on a pay increase for the accused general. The women and men who service in uniform deserve respect, but all they get from the Defence Minister is cover-ups. Will the Defence Minister tell Canadians why he failed to flag sexual misconduct allegations to Cabinet before they approved General Vance's pay raise?
Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, as I stated, I do not determine the pay increases. That is done independently based on the advice and recommendations of the public service. And Mr. Speaker, when it comes to the testimony, the Chief of Staff of former Prime Minister Harper stated political staff ministers clearly aren't investigative entities in our system of government, Mr. Speaker. But also, he also raised the question regarding the leader of the opposition and what he knew about the rumors of that time of the former Chief of Defence Staff. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Selkirk Interlake Eastman.
And we know from that testimony today, Mr. Speaker, that unlike the Defence Minister, who pushed away and refused to take evidence and do anything with it and participate in a cover-up, our government took that evidence and fully investigated it. Now, Mr. Speaker, the Defence Minister and the Prime Minister knew about allegations of sexual misconduct against Canada's top generals back in 2018 and refused to investigate. Now we learned that General Vance was given a significant pay raise right after the evidence was brought to the minister. This Liberal government's feminist credentials are a joke. Will the Defence Minister explain to the brave women and men in the Canadian Forces why he failed to step in and stop that pay increase?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, as I stated before, when allegations were brought forward, they were immediately taken to the Privy Councils for action to be taken, Mr. Speaker. But we also have questions ourselves right now, what was known in 2015 by the member himself, Mr. Speaker, because he was Parliamentary Secretary, the Minister of National Defence, and also to the opposition leader that based on the testimony that the former Chief of Staff to Prime Minister Harper had raised. What did they know? Mr. Speaker, at the end of the day, what we're going to be focused on is making sure that we prevent these type of misconduct, but more importantly, hold people to account as well. Thank you.
L'honorable député de Jonquière.
The Honourable Member for Jonquière. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Contrary to what members of the Conservative Party believe, climate change exists. However, what's almost as disappointing as this denial is the Liberal bill that's supposed to stop climate change. The government sets no greenhouse gas reduction targets for 2030 or any intermediate goals for 2025, and is subject to no independent accountability. In short, the federal government will continue to be able to do nothing for at least 10 years. Will the Liberals tighten up this bill? Or do they also have doubts about the climate emergency? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, I'm pleased to be able to say that for once I agree with my colleague for the Bloc Québécois regarding that climate change exists, and what the Conservatives did over the weekend is extremely worrisome. Such a major party refuses to recognize the importance of climate change. That is deeply worrying, because before being able to find a solution, one must recognize that a problem exists, and the Conservatives refused to recognize climate change. And with my colleague of the Bloc Québécois, I agree that we should condemn what they did. The Honourable Member for Jonquière. It is indeed concerning that the Conservatives aren't recognizing climate change, but you know what else is worrying? Investing $12 billion in the Trans Mountain Pipeline and granting licenses for 100 exploratory wells during the pandemic and offering billions to fossil fuels. And on the other hand, with the Conservatives that don't believe in climate change, and yet over here we have the Liberals who are doing nothing to fight climate change. What's the difference between the two? Can somebody tell me? The Honourable Minister.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Climate change threatens our health, our lifestyle, our planet. That's why our government is going to set up climate measures as of now. We will keep the promise we made to Canadians to present a plan to achieve this goal, create thousands of jobs, and ensure that we surpass our objectives for 2030 and set up the basis for carbon neutrality by 2050. The Honourable Member for Manicouagan. Mr. Speaker, for once, I agree with the member for Gaspésie-Les-Îles-de-la-Madeleine. Even a minister in this government admits that it's the fault of their own government if fishing season in the islands is being endangered. Ottawa is imperiling the entire region's economy by closing the port's capacity by 37%. The federal government is responsible for the state of the port. It is its job to maintain it. Ottawa has to shoulder its responsibilities. In the short term, is the government going to promise to compensate fishers and businesses for losses caused by the negligence of the Liberal government? The Honourable Minister.
I'm sorry, Mr. Speaker, I was on mute. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to thank my honourable colleague for the question. Mr. Speaker, we will continue to work with our stakeholders, with transport, with our fishers to make sure that we're doing everything possible to mitigate any challenges that we're seeing with the port. We will continue to work with all parties engaged, and we will follow up with her on this issue. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
L'honorable député de Mégantic.
The Honourable Member for Mégantic-l'Érable.
Vous êtes en sourdine. On va recommencer.
Let's restart. You were on mute.
C'est pas sourdine, c'est le microphone qui est trop.
Perhaps it's the microphone position? Is that better? Yes, thank you. Thank you. On Friday, there was a sad anniversary for Canadians. It's been exactly 2 years, 24 months, since Canadians had a federal budget. 2 years that the Liberal government is failing the test of transparency and accountability. While all G7 countries have presented at least one budget since the beginning of the pandemic, the Prime Minister prefers to hide his inability to present a recovery plan to Canadians. When will the Minister of Finance finally present a budget to Canadians? The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank my friend, the honourable member opposite, for the question. And with respect, the Minister of Finance will be sharing details soon on the timing of this year's budget. I will remind him, however, though, that during the course of this extraordinary once-in-a-century pandemic, we have gone to great lengths to make sure that Canadians have access to information about where their money is being spent. I can point to a 237-page fall economic statement, the regular practice of putting forward estimates, bi-weekly updates during the COVID-19 committee, and now reports that are going to the Government Operations Committee, in addition to most of the information which we're putting on the Government of Canada's website. I'd invite him to check it out.
L'honorable député de
The honourable member from Mégantic-l'Érable.
Monsieur le Président, ce qui se trame derrière les portes.
Mr. Speaker, what's going on behind closed Liberal doors is very worrisome. They're unable to curb their own spending and is asking for an increase to their credit line by $663 billion, not million, billion, $663 billion more on the collective credit card of Canadian families, and the Minister of Finance is refusing to explain why we need to borrow so much. They have no respect for the future of our grandchildren. When will we finally have a budget with a real plan for economic recovery? The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, if my friend opposite thinks that the cost of action has been too great, I'd ask him to consider the cost of inaction. It would have been paid for with bankruptcies at local businesses and individual Canadian households that couldn't afford to put food on the table. With respect to his assertion, I'd point out that the recent report of the International Monetary Fund has explained that while the fiscal deficit and public debt have increased, sizable fiscal support was necessary to help avert larger economic and social consequences. Mr. Speaker, Canadians can rest assured we will continue to be there for them through this pandemic, no matter what it takes, as long as it takes.
The honourable member for Abbotsford.
Excuses, excuses. This government has gone over 2 years without tabling a budget, a dubious record. What's worse, they want to increase their line of credit by a staggering $750 billion. And the minister won't even tell us how she plans to use that money. All we know is she has no plan to reopen our economy, no plan to secure our future. The only guarantee is that future generations of Canadians will be left holding the bag. Mr. Speaker, where's the budget and where is the plan to reopen the economy?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank my honourable member for divorcing himself with the conversation at their convention on the weekend on the reality of climate change to bring the focus onto economic issues. Only the Conservatives, Mr. Speaker, would suggest that our emergency benefits have been too generous and that Canada couldn't afford them. The reality is, when the coronavirus stopped the Canadian economy in its tracks, it caused serious costs to our communities. The government made the decision that we would be there to support households so families could keep food on the table and businesses could keep their doors open and workers on the payroll. As we move forward, yes, there will be a need for continued investment, but as the chief economist at the IMF has said, that can be fiscally responsible and economically sound.
The honourable member for Vancouver Kingsway.
Mr. Speaker, due to decades of underfunding and privatization, COVID-19 has cost the lives of thousands of Canadians in long-term care homes. Residents and staff are living and working in unsafe conditions so bad, the Army had to be called in to care for seniors and help overwhelmed workers. Federal governments allowed this to happen by failing to regulate national standards of care and allowing companies to profit off vulnerable patients and those who care for them. Will Liberals put the health of our seniors first and take profit out of long-term care?
Honourable Minister.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And I think the member opposite knows that it is not only the right of provinces and territories to deliver health care, but it is also their responsibility. Now, having said that, I think the member opposite knows that the federal government has been there for provinces and territories in protecting seniors in long-term care homes throughout this pandemic and have committed to the development and the upholding of long-term care standards across this country. In fact, we've been there for provinces and territories, Mr. Speaker, to support workers who have been struggling with low wages and with poor training. Indeed, $3 billion, Mr. Speaker, to provinces and territories to increase wages of low-income essential workers.
Honourable member for Victoria.
Mr. Speaker, 60% of student loan borrowers are women. They hold the vast majority of student debt, accrue more interest, and have more trouble paying it off. And the pandemic has only made the gender gap worse. On Saturday, the NDP proposed a plan to cancel up to $20,000 in student debt per person, stop loan payments until the pandemic is over, and permanently cancel interest. Will this self-proclaimed feminist prime minister stop profiting off the backs of women and students who are just trying to get an education, follow our lead by freezing loan payments, forgiving student debt, and ending interest for good?
Honourable Minister.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker, we recognize that student debt, of course, can be challenging for graduates, and that's why in response to COVID-19, we increased Canada student grants by 50% to help Canadians from low and middle income families. We've improved the repayment assistance program so applicants won't have to repay their student loan until they are earning at least $25,000 per year, and we've expanded eligibility for Canada student grants and loans for part-time students and students with dependent children. We'll continue to be there to support students and remain committed to making post-secondary education more affordable.
The honourable member for Scarborough Agincourt.
Mr. Speaker, anti-Asian racism is on the rise. Since the start of the pandemic, there has been a significant increase in hate crimes against the Asian population, from verbal abuse to harassment and accumulating in the violence we witnessed in the U.S. last week. COVID-19 has had a devastating impact on the lives of Canadians, and racism is further increasing challenges faced by the Asian Canadian community. Can the Minister of Public Safety and Emergency Preparedness inform Canadians how our government is fighting back against hate, discrimination, and racist violence?
Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank the member of Scarborough Agincourt for her very important question and for her tireless advocacy. Recent events have reminded us of the tragedy and the unacceptable threats faced by the people of Asian descent, which have increased since the start of the pandemic. Mr. Speaker, we strongly condemn these acts and we stand in solidarity with all Asian communities in denouncing racist violence. And Mr. Speaker, last Friday, I convened a roundtable with members of Markham Thornhill and Waterloo, along with leaders of law enforcement from right across Canada to discuss ways to raise public awareness and to hold perpetrators to account. Mr. Speaker, we will take action to keep Asian Canadians safe, and that action will be informed by race-based data collection.
The honourable member for Calgary Nose Hill.
Every single Canadian has felt the impact of pandemic restrictions on their mental health. Families are saying goodbye to loved ones on FaceTime. Business owners, gig economy workers are unsure how they will make ends meet. And we're still seeing rises in the level of domestic violence. We need hope and clear advice from the government on the circumstances under which normal life can permanently resume. For example, can a Canadian senior who is suffering the negative mental health impacts of isolation, who has received their vaccine, give their grandchild a hug?
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I'm not sure if the member opposite realizes this, but many of the situations that she references are in fact at the purview of the provincial and territorial governments. In fact, it's the provinces and territories that, with support from the federal government, develop guidance to be used in all of our jurisdictions. And it's in fact the provinces and territories and indeed local leaders that decide which measures need to be in place to protect citizens. I'll tell you this, Mr. Speaker, our government believes in following science and evidence, including public health leaders, and will continue to do that.
Member for Caribou Prince George.
Mr. Speaker, we are facing a mental health crisis that is worsening by the day. Lives and livelihoods have been lost. Suicide rates have spiked. Depression and anxiety are at unprecedented levels. This crisis is real, and Canadians need real mental health resources now. They don't need another government website. They don't need to be placed on hold because of this government's failure to implement a 3-digit national suicide prevention hotline. Conservatives have a real plan to secure Canada's mental health and well-being. A simple question, Mr. Speaker. Where's theirs?
Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, every step of the way, this government has invested in mental health supports pre-pandemic and indeed throughout the pandemic, as the member opposite might realize. In fact, I want to speak today about wellnesstogether.ca. Unlike what the member opposite says, this is not just a website. This is actually direct connections for Canadians across the country to get paid professional help completely for free and in both official languages, translated into 60 others. I encourage all Canadians to check out wellnesstogether.ca today. In fact, over 1 million individuals across Canada have used the program in over 2.9 million distinct sessions.
Honourable member for Sarnia-Lambton.
Monsieur le Président.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister has raised the issue of Line 5 with President Biden. Will he ask President Biden again to intervene to keep Line 5 open and save 50,000 jobs on both sides of the border?
Le Ministre.
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, Line 5 is non-negotiable.
People will not be left out in the cold. Hundreds of thousands of homes on both sides of the border depend on it for heating. Tens of thousands of jobs on both sides of the border depend on it. We take threats to Canada's energy security very seriously. We are standing up for our proud energy workers. They are the ones who are leading our economic recovery. They are leading the way. As I say, Line 5 is non-negotiable. Thank you, Mr.
L'honorable député de Sarnia.
The honourable member for Sarnia-Lambton.
Well, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Vern Yu, the president of Liquids Pipelines for Enbridge, told our Canada-U.S. Special Committee they'd appreciate the support of our federal and provincial governments by way of filing amicus curiae briefs in the lawsuit, declaring they support Enbridge's position that this is a federal matter of jurisdiction in the U.S. Will our Natural Resources Minister commit to filing such a brief in support of keeping Line 5 open?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, Line 5 is a battle that we are fighting on every front, including legal, including diplomatic. We are taking every tack that we need to in order to make sure that we protect Line 5. Line 5 is the most efficient way to deliver the products that Michigan needs to heat its homes and fly its jets and power their economy. And shutting it down would mean at 800 extra rail cars a day, 15,000 additional trucks per day transporting crude and propane. Mr. Speaker, we don't need more trucks on the road jamming up the 401 and jamming up our already congested border crossings. Line 5 is safe. It has been for 65 years, and it will continue to be so.
L'honorable député.
The honourable member for Lac-Saint-Jean. Mr. Speaker, on January 27th, the House of Commons unanimously passed a motion, put forward by the Bloc Québécois, calling on the Minister of Immigration to grant Canadian citizenship to Raif Badawi. Now, almost 2 months later, Mr. Badawi remains in prison in Saudi Arabia and is still not a citizen. My question is simple. What has the minister done in the last 2 months? Why is it that Raif Badawi is still not a citizen, despite the request of all members of Parliament from all parties in this House? The Honourable Minister. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Canada will always defend human rights around the world, and we are aware of the case of Raif Badawi and following it. We are following his case at the highest level, and we have asked for clemency multiple times.
Nous avons un petit
I believe we have a little problem. Okay, now we have the camera back. What we'll do, just to make sure that everything is properly on the record, is we'll start over with the question from the member for Lac-Saint-Jean, and then we'll have the answer as well. Well, I hope the minister understands the question this time. On January 27th, the House of Commons unanimously passed a motion put forward by the Bloc Québécois calling on the Minister of Immigration to grant Canadian citizenship to Raif Badawi. Now, it's been almost 2 months. Mr. Badawi is still in prison in Saudi Arabia and is still not a citizen. My question is simple. What has the minister done for the last 2 months, and why is it that Raif Badawi is still not a citizen despite the request of all of the members of Parliament of all parties in this House? The Honourable Minister for Immigration. Mr. Speaker, we appreciate this motion that was recently passed by all parties of the House and Senate. We will always defend human rights here in Canada and around the world. Our immigration system is based on compassion and the rule of law, and we should be proud of that immigration system. We will continue to work together with all members to reunite Mr. Badawi with his family. The Honourable Member for Lac-Saint-Jean. Well, that wasn't the question, Mr. Speaker. And I think that this answer shows a lack of respect for Mr. Badawi and his wife and family and this House as well. All members of Parliament have called on the minister to grant Mr. Badawi citizenship. Even the Senate wants to join the movement by passing the same motion. The minister has the discretion to grant citizenship to a person in distress. Everyone can see that this is the case of Mr. Badawi. His life is in danger, and he's been in prison for nearly 9 years. When will the minister grant him citizenship? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, I entirely agree with the member. We are very concerned by Mr. Badawi's safety. We are working with our colleagues, with the Minister of Foreign Affairs, and we will continue to defend human rights around the world and here in Canada. We will continue to work with Mr. Badawi's family. It's very important, and we will continue this work together. Thank you. The Honourable Member for Richmond-Arthabasca. Mr. Speaker, the Liberals have ignored allegations in the Canadian Armed Forces, turned a blind eye to the abusive relationships of former Governor-General Julie Payette. They've turned a deaf ear to employees of Radio-Canada in Quebec who recently reported a toxic work environment. And in the case of the Canadian Museum of History, they let an investigation drag on for more than 2 months following a complaint of harassment. Mr. Speaker, there are victims in all of these stories. When will the minister take action? The Honourable Minister. Sorry, Mr. Speaker. We're currently studying the independent investigation report concerning the Canadian Museum of History case, and we are working directly with the President there. We expect museums to uphold the highest standards of respect and inclusive workplaces, and that includes prioritizing the physical and mental well-being of its staff. The Government of Canada has a zero-tolerance policy when it comes to workplace harassment. Thank you. The Honourable Member for Montmagny-Lillet, Kamouraska, Rivière-du-Loup. Mr. Speaker, we have an immigrant from Mexico who's gone through the entire selection process, and his employer is waiting impatiently for him to come. The only thing he needs is his biometric appointment, but the subcontractor, VFS Global in Mexico City, is closed until further notice. If we wait until the pandemic is over, we'll be waiting quite a long time, Mr. Speaker. So rather than making excuses, will the government propose a solution here? And when will this employer be able to get the employer to Canada? The Honourable Minister.
Monsieur le Président.
Mr. Speaker, our government has strong experience in meeting our immigration targets. Our 2021 plan is based on the economic recovery and recruiting the workers that we need to meet food service, healthcare, and other needs that exist in Canada. We continue to work with employers from various sectors to work on planning for our immigration targets.
Calgary Centre.
Mr. Speaker, offshore oil workers are hard at work keeping our economy running. Yet the Liberals are sitting back and delaying regulations to keep these workers safe on the job. The Liberals waited until the last minute to introduce a bill in the Senate to keep offshore workers safe in their jobs. Well, the Senate has finally done its job, but now the government is dragging its feet again on moving this bill through this House. Enough with the delays. Conservatives are waiting, and so are thousands of offshore workers for 6 years. When will this government stop sleeping on the job and actually get to work to keep oil workers safe?
Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Workers in the offshore are currently protected. The legal framework continues to be in place. It has been since 2014. Workers are protected under the best health and safety frameworks in the world, and we continue to improve it. That's why it is the best. We are working on permanent regulations with our partners, and when it comes to the lives and safety of the noble men and women who work in our offshore, I can tell you that getting it right is paramount. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Bourassa. Mr. Speaker, last weekend, the cat was out of the bag. Like many other Canadians, I was shocked to see a so-called modern national party reject the simple fact that climate change is real. The reality is that we are dealing with extreme weather phenomena, such as flooding and forest fires. How can the Conservative Party and its leader really claim that they're ready to govern if they can't admit the reality of climate change? The Honourable Minister.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to thank the member for Bourassa for his question. Climate change is real. We are experiencing more extreme weather events, such as historic floods and forest fires in Quebec. And despite this, the Conservatives have decided to bury their heads in the sand and reject the reality that we all acknowledge. Mr. Speaker, it's clear that the Conservative Party is going backwards. And unfortunately, it is future generations who stand to deal with the consequences.
The Honourable Member for Charleswood St. James, Assiniboia, Headingley.
Mr. Speaker, thousands of students across Canada are struggling to find summer employment in the middle of a pandemic. Families in my community are trying to make ends meet, and students need a job to pay for their education. Last year, the Liberal government's brilliant solution to this problem was to try and pay their friends at We Charity $500 million. Instead of paying their friends again this year, will the Liberals commit to supporting students by increasing funding for the Canada Summer Jobs Program like Conservatives have called for?
The Honourable Minister.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. And good news, Canada's prosperity and post-COVID economic recovery depends, we know, on young Canadians getting the education and experience they need to succeed. That's why the Canada Summer Jobs Program is an important part of our government's youth employment and skills strategy. Last year, we funded 80,000 CSJ job placements, and this year we're aiming to create 120,000 job placements for young Canadians. We understand the importance of this program, and we will be there to support jobs for young people this year and in all the years to follow. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Lethbridge.
The government can only work effectively if they have the trust of Canadians. That trust, however, is eroding. To access benefits, Canadians have to provide their personal information online. However, according to cybersecurity experts, the government is not doing an adequate job protecting that information. The CRA has now closed down 800,000 accounts because hackers are gaining access. My question is simple. What is the government doing in order to beef up security measures in order to make sure that bad actors aren't accessing Canadians' personal information and using it against them?
Honourable Minister.
Monsieur le Président, il m'apparaît...
Mr. Speaker, it seems clear to me that my colleague is only reading the headlines and not the full articles. The protection of citizens' data is a priority for our government, and that's why the agency deactivated people's accounts in order to prevent identity theft. The government was proactive before the data were compromised. I want to thank employees at the agency who did excellent work on this, and I would invite my colleague to read the details of the articles and read the articles right until the end before spreading incorrect information. I think her constituents deserve better.
The Honourable Member for Souris Moose Mountain.
Mr. Speaker, since the Minister had no clue about the numbers when asked today at committee, I will fill you in. Enbridge Line 5 safely moves 540,000 barrels of oil to Sarnia each day in order to service Ontario and Quebec. If cancelled, replacing it would require 9 extra 110-car unit trains or 5 barges moving 118,000 barrels of oil each through the Mackinac Strait and the Great Lakes every day. Aside from spouting platitudes and scripted talking points, what concrete results has the Minister received to ensure the continuation of Line 5?
The Honourable Minister.
Oh, Mr. Speaker, everything that the Honourable Member brought up occurs in a place called reality. Reality is a place where Line 5 exists and where workers are on the line. Reality is where climate change is real. It's time for action, not more studies. It's time to deal with reality as it is in a world where climate change is real and where Line 5 is something that is non-negotiable for this government. We know full well what's at stake. 5,000 direct jobs in Sarnia, 23,000 indirect jobs in the region. That's reality, Mr. Speaker, and that is where we live and the job we will do.
The Honourable Member for Guelph.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I, like many Canadians, was deeply concerned when I saw this weekend that the Conservative Party at their national convention rejected adding "climate change is real" to their policy book. Mr. Speaker, Canadians know that a plan for the environment is a plan for the economy. Can the Minister of the Environment and Climate Change please update Canadians on how this Liberal government is building a cleaner, stronger, and more resilient economy?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I would like to thank the member from Guelph for his tireless work on this subject. Mr. Speaker, on this side of the aisle, the debate truly is settled. Climate change is real. We stand with science and the scientific community on this important matter. I, too, was deeply disappointed when I heard the news this weekend that the Conservative Party is continuing to reject the reality of climate change. Canadians expect their governments to protect the environment and grow the economy. That is why we brought forward a strengthened climate plan in December. Mr. Speaker, it is a simple fact that in the modern world, you cannot grow the economy without having a plan for the environment. And sadly, it's a fact the party opposite has once again rejected.
Honourable member for Windsor West.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians pay some of the highest rates in the world for cell phone and internet service. For decades, Liberals and Conservatives have sided with the telecom giants, which reduced competitions, led to skyrocketing prices that many Canadians simply cannot afford. Rogers cannibalizing Shaw will eliminate the little competition we have now, raise these outrageous prices, intensify gouging on consumers, and continue to damage our economy. That's why there is a universal public outcry to stop this takeover. Broken Liberal promises won't pay the bills. Will the minister stop this insane merger?
Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we've been very, very clear that greater affordability, competition, and innovation all across the telecommunications sector in Canada are so important to us as a government, just as they're important to Canadians who are concerned about their cell phone bills and their connectivity. And these goals are going to be front and center as we do the analysis necessary to figure out the implications of this proposed deal. The transaction will be reviewed by the CRTC, by the Competition Bureau, by a standing committee of industry, and by our own department. So the work will be done. And Mr. Speaker, Canadians can be ensured that as consumers, they will be protected, as will the public interest be considered all along these analyses. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Hastings, Lennox and Addington.
Mr. Speaker, last week we passed the one-year anniversary of lockdowns, only to hear of another breach of liberties gaining traction, vaccination passports. A forced vaxport raises serious medical and ethical concerns. Health Canada tells us it's unknown whether the vaccine prevents the spread of the virus or even how long the vaccine's effectiveness may last. Many are concerned about leaking of personal medical information, religious freedom, and personal consent. Canada cannot become a two-tiered country. Will the minister oppose vaccination passports on behalf of all freedom-loving Canadians?
The Honourable Minister.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And unlike the member opposite, we believe in a response that's guided by science, evidence, and public health expertise. In fact, that's the only way to get through this pandemic, Mr. Speaker, to listen to those people who are putting their own lives on hold to help guide Canadians through this incredible challenge. It's important, Mr. Speaker, that we don't sow fear and distrust amongst the public health officials that are doing so much work to get us through this all safely. Mr. Speaker, I call on the member opposite to support a public health response that's based on science and evidence.